The royal family?
The Duchess of Sussex.
The royal family titles
Meghan Markle went up.
In the twilight of her reign, Queen Elizabeth II held on to one precious routine: a quiet cup of tea at 5 o'clock sharp. For decades, that moment was sacred. A pause from duty, a sliver of peace in a lifetime ruled by tradition. But one afternoon, that ritual was interrupted. The phone rang. It was Prince Harry. And for the first time, the Queen refused to take his call.
New royal book reveals quite how disgusted the late Queen Elizabeth II.
She already suspected what he wanted: money, once again. When Harry and Meghan stepped away from royal life, both the Queen and Prince Charles had agreed to help them adjust, covering security costs, offering temporary financial support, even helping with their new home abroad. It was meant to be a bridge, not a lifeline. But that bridge began to crumble fast. Harry's demands didn't stop. And the Queen, normally calm and composed, was growing weary. After one of his calls, she reportedly sighed to her aides. More money. Even she, the nation's unshakable matriarch, had reached her breaking point.
She was clearly irritated, and her grandson was not put through. She may have suspected what he wanted to discuss. Before Harry had left Britain in 2020, the Queen and Prince Charles had arranged to cover security costs for him and his son Archie for a whole year. In addition, Harry's father had offered to assist with household bills and living expenses while the Sussexes settled into their new lives, first in Canada and then in California. But was that enough? Harry seemed to be finding the shift from being a working royal rather harder than expected. Sure enough, he called his grandmother back the following day, though this time not during the sacred hour. This time she took his call. After hanging up, she sighed and said in front of her staff, "More money."
It wasn't just about the cash, it was what it represented. For Elizabeth, duty came before desire, and thrift was a royal virtue. So when she saw headlines about Meghan's £60,000 Dior gown, her patience thinned. She thought it was a tone-deaf display in a time when modesty was expected. Privately, she told those close to her that Harry's behavior seemed quite mad. The Queen had once welcomed Meghan with warmth, believing her modern spirit could strengthen the monarchy. But what she saw instead was division and drama. Eventually, she ordered Harry's calls to be routed to his father.
One matter that did anger her was Meghan's taste for expensive designer clothes. She had looked stunning when 9 months after the royal wedding, she appeared in a custom-made Christian Dior gown during a reception in February 2019 at the British ambassador's residence in Morocco. However, the cost of her wardrobe for the Sussexes' official tour was causing comment back home. Certainly, the estimated £60,000 price tag for the Dior dress drew the Queen's ire when she read about it in the press. She later let Meghan know that such an expensive outfit was an ill-judged choice. Privately, Queen Elizabeth described Harry's behaviour as quite mad. She made it clear to those close to her that she felt let down by the Sussexes' departure, which she saw as short-sighted and a missed opportunity. The Queen had warmly welcomed Meghan, viewing her dual heritage, beauty and communication skills as assets to the family. When everything else fell apart, she publicly wished the couple well. As time went on, however, she tired of their dramatics and ordered that Harry's phone call.
Prince Charles, too, had reached the end of his rope. When Harry allegedly swore at him over the phone while demanding funds, Charles cut contact. "I'm not a bank," he told his staff. The future king refused to bankroll a man who had chosen freedom from the firm but still wanted its privileges. Harry, now in his mid-30s, was no longer a prince-in-waiting. He was a husband, a father, and yet still a son asking for more.
And he writes, unfortunately for Harry, Prince Charles had also grown tired of his errant son's rants. After Harry swore at him over the phone one day, and demanded funds, he stopped taking his calls. "I'm not a bank," Charles told his inner circle. Long-serving staff who knew Harry well were left in the awkward position of having to make polite excuses when his father wouldn't come to the phone. Now, Brittany, that is quite astonishing, isn't it? Like, you are asking your father, who also at that time happens to be the heir to the throne, to bankroll and fund your life, yet you're swearing at him down the phone? It's not a
I
good
mean,
play.
no, it's not. And you got to think about it, Dan. Harry was in his mid 30s, closing in on 40s at this point, and he's still swearing at his dad, begging for money. He's a married man in his mid 30s with a family. It is Harry's obligation, Harry's responsibility to pay for his family. It is not his father's job. And his father.
And then came a betrayal that cut deeper than money. The name Lilibet. To the Queen, Lilibet was not just a name. It was her childhood nickname, sacred, whispered only by those who loved her most. When she discovered Harry and Meghan had used it for their daughter without her blessing, she was reportedly furious. She hurled her morning paper to the floor. To make matters worse, during one of their last visits to the UK, Harry and Meghan were invited for tea, her cherished ritual. She had ordered a special cake, but they never came. No call, no explanation. By 5:15, the tea was cleared away. The Queen sat alone in Windsor Castle, frail, grieving, and disappointed.
From Robert Jobson in this bombshell new book, Brittany, about Lilibet the name. Because, do you remember this? Harry claimed that the late Queen was so happy, that decided to steal her childhood name. Couldn't have been further from the truth. She was completely disgusted, but this is a great account of what actually happened, Brittany. He writes, a palace source has a different version of events, which is that the Queen first learned of Lilibet's name from the morning press and was so incensed at the affront that she threw the paper to the floor, startling her staff. Later, during one of the Sussex's final UK visits before her death, they skipped a planned tea, that daily ritual so precious to the Queen. What's more, they skipped it without giving her notice. She had requested a special cake. By 5:15 p.m, with no word, she told staff to clear everything away. After the loss of her husband, the Queen spent nearly all...
Even as illness crept in and the palace grew quieter, her days were shadowed by headlines. Headlines about betrayal, distance, and broken family ties. She had hoped for reconciliation, but all she got were statements and staged sympathy. When King Charles was later diagnosed with cancer, Harry tried to visit, uninvited. Their meeting lasted barely 30 minutes. Behind the scenes, Charles had arranged an urgent medical procedure as an excuse to leave. There was no procedure, just a helicopter waiting to fly him away.
He writes, Harry and Meghan sent their well wishes. Neither King Charles nor Catherine responded. A palisade scoffed at the Sussexes' statement, calling it cynical. After all, just weeks before, the couple had been slinging mud at the royal family and portraying themselves as victims. The king, who'd broken the news of his cancer to Harry in a phone call, had started treatment straight away. He was undergoing chemotherapy and felt a strong need for peace and quiet. The last thing he needed was any drama. Yet without invitation, Harry took it upon himself to fly over to see his father. The king had planned to spend the weekend at Sandringham in Norfolk, so he was irritated at being forced to wait in London until his son arrived. Their meeting was brief, around 30 minutes. Wary of letting Harry prolong it, Charles had prearranged for the meeting to be interrupted with a warning that it was time for a medical procedure. His son left soon afterwards. In fact, there was no procedure scheduled and never had been. Instead, the king flew.
And as the storm around Harry and Meghan continued, another royal scandal began to swirl, this time around Prince Andrew. Hidden within the same new royal exposé, the Windsor legacy, came shocking claims. A party at Sandringham. Epstein. Maxwell, and traces of drugs found afterward. The Queen, long aware of her son's recklessness, had turned a blind eye for years. But Charles, now king, vowed that era was over. He began cutting off Andrew's extravagant spending, from health gurus to personal yoga instructors. It was time to tighten the crown's purse strings.
to enhance sexual experiences were found at Sandringham after Andrew hosted a party for paedophile Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Bathrooms at the royal property were littered with condoms, lubricants, and drugs called poppers after an event which Andrew later dismissed as a straightforward shooting weekend. The party thrown to mark Ghislaine Maxwell's 39th birthday in 2000 featured and disgraced Andrew's 2019 Newsnight interview with Emily Maitlis. The Windsor legacy also repeats the claim King Charles clamped down on his brother's extravagant expenditures, including tens of thousands of pounds on Indian health gurus. Her Majesty, referring to Elizabeth II, waved through huge bills for spiritual advisors who encouraged Andrew to chant Indian mantras. Within weeks of ascending to the throne, King Charles was shocked to receive a £32,000 bill for Andrew's live-in yoga instructor. His younger brother expected the privy purse to pick up the tab, but King Charles intervened. The new monarch wanted to rein in royal expenditure.
Then another figure re-emerged, Meghan Markle, again under fire. A resurfaced story from her days with the charity World Vision revealed troubling details. A humanitarian trip to Rwanda, complete with first-class flights, a glam squad, and suitcases of designer clothes. Each photo with local children, witnesses said, was followed by a wardrobe change. The trip, critics claimed, was less about charity and more about optics. Even those within the organization reportedly questioned how the production had spiraled into a personal photo shoot. It was a glimpse of the same pattern that had once angered the late Queen, the pursuit of image over impact.
This charity now being investigated, and Meghan's antics when it came to World Vision were so revolting, and I think it's actually right that there is more focus on this now. I mean, as the Daily Mail pointed out on X, she demanded first-class tickets, had a makeup team, and brought several suitcases of clothes for her humanitarian trip to Rwanda, as the charity is accused of racism. And here's the reporting in the Mail. Evangelical Christian organisation World Vision is under fire after its British arm was hit with allegations of racism and sexism, which it denies, nearly a decade after Meghan's involvement as an ambassador for its Canadian wing ended. As part of her role, the now Duchess of Sussex agreed to be part of a film about World Vision's work building water wells in the African country in January 2016. However, Meghan was allegedly just as interested in self-promotion and used the 4-day visit to be photographed with village children. As royal biographer Tom Bower claimed, each pose was followed by a change of clothing. He claimed the actress insisted on flying to Rwanda first class and being accompanied by Gabor Jurina, a Canadian fashion photographer. Michael Goye, an American hair and makeup stylist, was also listed as travelling with Gabor. Bauer claimed that Meghan's demands sent the production budget through the roof, meaning the film's producer, Brenda Szymanski, was forced to drop out. After the shoot, Szymanski reportedly said it was mind-blowing to think that someone had staged a photo shoot in an impoverished African village, adding,
Years later, the palace still lives in the shadow of that divide. The Queen's final wish was peace, for her family, for her nation, and for the monarchy she built. But the cracks remain visible. And perhaps that's the hardest truth of all. Even in the world's most famous family, forgiveness isn't inherited. It has to be earned.
Has always done. I've been seeing endless articles on X about how great Meghan is, her charity, her business, what have you. And it's like, all of this we know is just driven by PR. It has literally basically no basis in fact, because Meghan Markle has never actually tried to do the hard work to make something successful. She always tries to scapegoat it by using PR to prop herself up. And that has a limited bandwidth. And of course, we've seen that hit a wall just too many.
In the end, Queen Elizabeth II gave her life to duty. But in her final chapter, she faced the one thing even she could not control: family. And behind palace gates, her silence spoke louder than any crown ever could.